back on the mic with us taking another look at preseason. This time to be week 3. It is only one pick for this week, guys. Last week there was only one pick because of the poor start to week 1. This week it's really just a matter of variance. There's not a lot of information coming out about week 3. Most of the coaches are trying to just keep everybody healthy at this point, especially after this little burst of injury news we've had. So let's get right to it. The pick is going to be Chiefs and Vikings. In this case, I'm going to be taking the Vikings. It's actually Vikings plus 4 in most places. There are a few spots that are going to give you plus 4.5. So quick reasoning on this. I like the Vikings. I'm taking the Vikings. So if you're here just for the pick and that's all you want to hear, there you go. Get out. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Have fun. Be careful. For the rest of you, the Vikings have come out, or I should say Mike Zimmer specifically, has come out saying that he wants to see his team have some success. And I apologize because this picture is kind of coming out a little cropped up. But Mike Zimmer basically said he's well, I'm just going to read it to you. Zimmer is hoping to leave Kansas City having seen his offense reach the end zone. So put this in perspective. The Vikings are 0-2 in preseason, which is very unlike them because the last year that there was a preseason, actually I should say the last 2 years that there were preseason, their record was 6-2. So Zimmer actually did put some emphasis on preseason, which is a huge indicator as far as coaching is concerned because usually it's like a 50-50 kind of thing. If you're 2 games over 50-50 or 2 or 3 games under 50-50, your coach either cares and he's trying to win those games, at least somewhat, and he's putting some plays out there, some effort that he thinks are going to actually score, or the opposite is true, like with Sean McVay, where they really don't give a shit. They're not trying to manage the clock. They're not trying to call plays that are really effective. They're strictly involved with scouting, and they don't care how many points actually get up on the board because they know the win doesn't matter, and it's just a scouting exercise. The Vikings are the former. They really want to get some game action. They want to look sharp. They want to feel like they're going into the regular season with everything firing exactly as it should be. So Mike Zimmer coming out saying, hey, we're already 0-2. I want to see my offense get clicking here. I'm going to quote him again. Excuse me. He says, I really don't want to go into the first ball game and we haven't looked crisp or sharp. So he really does want to get something going, some sort of momentum going with his offense. And they also have, not only are they 0-2 in the preseason, they also have not scored a single touchdown in the preseason. A few years ago, this actually happened with the Cowboys, and I believe it was the second year with Dak. They had not scored any touchdown, and it was like the third preseason week. And I know back then, obviously, the third preseason game was like the dress rehearsal. But up to that point, they had not scored. And so Jason Garrett, the coach at the time, really put an emphasis on scoring on like the first or second drive. And they got it. And I don't know, can't remember offhand if they won that game or not. But I know that they did really put emphasis on scoring. And so I expect to see the same thing from Zimmer. And he actually reminds me a lot of Garrett. Just the same kind of coaching that he likes to do and kind of the same ideologies and things like that. And so he also says we didn't get the ball down vertically, hardly any, blah, 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 blah. So a few things he's saying in this one, little set of quotes here is, one, he wants to see his offense score, basically. 2, he wants to have them looking sharp, getting some momentum, feeling like they're ready to start playing games that matter. And then lastly, he wants to see them move the ball vertically, not a bunch of this little check down horizontal stuff. So that's important because now we have an idea of the coaching mentality and him saying, I really want to put some emphasis on this game regardless of it mattering or not. Where Andy Reid and the Chiefs are the exact opposite. The Chiefs are 2-0. They have not had any issues on offense. They've scored touchdowns. They have done whatever they wanted to on offense. Obviously, these guys are returning off a Super Bowl trip, losing a Super Bowl trip, but still. And they have, if we look at this here, Andy Reid is now 8 years into being the coach for the Chiefs. Eric Bieniemy is 3 years in. Steve Spagnuolo is already 2 years in. So they don't have any new coaching staff. Their main guys, they know who their starters are. I think the only group I could really pick out here that has some maybe growing pains in front of them is the offensive line. They've gotten a lot of playing time in the first 2 preseason games, just kind of meshing everybody together, making sure that line is great. Andy Reid, and I'm going to read you his quotes now. So he says, we'll see how it goes. And this is him being asked about the starters playing in Game 3. He got quite a few snaps, 33 snaps or so the last game. He's referring to Patrick Mahomes. So he got sufficient enough snaps for Reid for that game in particular, where he didn't really need to see anymore. And if we're being honest here, these top quarterbacks, they don't need. We know what they can do. Maybe they want to work on timing and some things that would just kind of knock the rust off, and that's always helpful. But it does not take a full game to get that in. So I don't project us to see Patrick Mahomes at all. And then he also goes on to say, Andy Reid, that it was a long first half. They got 45 plays in, blah blah blah. So he's seen these guys enough, and he does not need to see any of his starters out there. He doesn't need to risk any of them getting hurt. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually just coming off an ankle injury. Seems like he'll be okay for week 1, especially because we have 2 weeks for him to recover, and I think he'll be fine. But the important thing is Reid does not need to put any of his guys out there, and he really is incentivized to not. Whereas the Vikings, should they play their starters? Probably not. They probably should kind of err on the side of caution. But I would not be totally surprised, and to be quite honest, I kind of expect to see at least some of their starters go out there with the first drive, maybe even the first 2 drives, and get a chance to get a score, get something on the board. And in a game where we're projecting the majority of the game to be played by second and third stringers and guys that are just on the edge of making these teams, I really think one score is going to make a difference as far as covering. This might be a week of like 13-10 kind of games. So if we're getting +4 and we're going to get the starters, even if it's just for the first quarter, for the first 2 drives, anything at all, and not even all the starters. I understand if Justin Jefferson isn't playing, if Adam Thielen is not playing, even if Dalvin Cook maybe only gets a series or whatever. I totally get that. But really, Kirk Cousins is the important part to this here. And just kind of having him get in sync with some of these guys that maybe he hasn't thrown to before. But if he can do that, I feel very confident that the Vikings can cover the spread. I actually think they might even just pull out the win. But the Chiefs, they're still the Chiefs. Even their backups are good. So I'm taking the Vikings +4. As of right now, you can actually get that at about even money. I think it's like -101, -102 some spots. You can get the Vikings +4.5, like I said earlier, at a few spots at like a -110. So just look around, see what lines you can get out there. But that's the pick for this week, guys, as far as preseason is concerned. As always, it's just a half a unit for your picks. But I did have some other notes here. If you saw them pop up real quick, I just want to go over them. And this is going to be more fantasy related. So if you're here just for the gambling stuff, let me leave you with one last note. So week 2, I only gave out 1 pick. It was the Titans. It was +1.5 actually when we grabbed it. But Titans even all the way up to a pick'em is what I was suggesting the entire week. And they ended up winning by 31 points. So good win for us there. Right side, right call, right everything. So no issues. Not trying to pound my chest on that one, but great. We got a win on the board. We got the unit back. So awesome. Some other news here. Like I said, I want to get into some fantasy things now that we're getting into fantasy season and fantasy draft season, things like that. So a few items I'd like to go over here, and I want to start off with receivers. Because I recently did like my quote unquote home league draft, and the receivers are lasting longer, and every year it seems like they last into the second round, but this year they're lasting even to like the third round. And by receivers I'm talking about like the top 10 guys. And so your first round, if it's anything like mine, and it was a full PPR league, not that I necessarily like full PPR, but that's what it is. So we had guys like A.J. Brown, which is who I drafted, in the third round, like the end of the third round. And so guys like Devontae Adams were going at the end of the second. And you might say, like, wow, your league just sucks. Maybe you guys don't know what the hell they're doing. That's very possible. They might suck But it's not the only league I've seen this happen in. In different sleeper leagues, in underdog leagues I'm in, and in some mock drafts on like ESPN and things. And I try to kind of get a good basis of every, location that I can, every platform that I can. And I'm seeing a lot of this happening. And it might not be a lot. It might not be like, 10 receivers that are falling in the third round as far as, your top tier guys. But I can almost guarantee you, if you have an early to mid third round pick, one of those top 10 receivers is going to fall to you. So whatever platform you're looking at, whatever receivers you have ranked 1 through 10, one of those guys is probably going to fall to you. So if you get the opportunity to get 2 top tier running backs, if you take, let's say, like a Dalvin Cook with, your second pick of the first round, and then you come back and you get, somebody like a Joe Mixon, if he happened to fall to the end of the second round, you can still get your number 1 receiver in the third round and walk away with a guy like an A.J. Brown to kind of lead that pick or lead your wide receiver core and feel confident in a guy like that, or an Allen Robinson even, that's going to be there. That you might not love the guy, he might not be the overall number 1 at the end of the season, but it's going to be a guy that you feel confident in, that should be a very predictable, solid core piece of your team. So I wanted to bring that up because it's very interesting to me that they're lasting that long. In a lot of drafts, I'm kind of like either in the middle or the very end of the draft, and it was very surprising to me, and I want to know if anybody else out there is having the same experience. But aside from your wide receiver 1, there's some other notes I want to give you on wide receivers. So a little trick or tip or nugget, whatever you want to call it, that I like to use, and I really only found out last year, but I used it in 2 or 3 leagues, and it worked like a charm, and I expect it to work this year as well, is that for week number 1, the wide receiver 2 on a team that's their best chance to perform above where you drafted them. And so what do I mean by that? Well, guys like, let's say, Sammy Watkins last year. He was the clear wide receiver 2 behind Tyreek Hill. He blew up for like 20 points week 1, or more than 20. The year before that, he did the same thing. Last year, guys like Emmanuel Sanders. Now, he didn't have as great of a game, but I believe he had 8 points if you were playing in standard leagues last year, which not great. He didn't win the week for you, but he's somebody that you got in like the 10th round of drafts last year that you could plug in for week number 1, and he gave you an above average, score. He gave you something that you could at least keep pace with your opponent. So if you maybe feel a little bit weaker on your wide receivers, maybe you went running back heavy, or you got a tight end, pretty early in the draft, or a quarterback pretty early in the draft, you should feel very confident playing a wide receiver 2 in your wide receiver, in a wide receiver 1 spot or a wide receiver 2 spot. Like I said, not that you're going to necessarily blow up and give you 20 or 30 points, but they're not going to give you a 0, or at least this is their best chance to not give you that 0. So some guys that I'm looking at would be, Chris Godwin. And maybe that's a cop-out because he's such a high pick anyways. But if we look around the league, guys like Mecole Hardman, Deebo Samuel, they should have productive week 1s. So Mecole Hardman, I believe he's like an 11th round pick right now, most ADPs. And same thing, just like Sammy Watkins, he's the clear number 2 behind Tyreek Hill. But he, again, is going to get the lesser of the coverage, and he should be open, or he should be somebody that Patrick can find, relatively easy. That's always weird, right, calling him Patrick. But he should have a good week. Deebo Samuel, same thing. Brandon Ayuk is the number 1 there. And if Brandon Ayuk is being used as the number 1, and the Lions, who don't have a great defense anyways, are going to kind of shift coverage to Ayuk and have to be concerned with him and make sure that they are aware of where he is at on the field at all times. Plus, you have a guy maybe like Trey Lance playing quarterback, who they have to be aware of as well. And then you have Mostert and Sermon back there in the backfield, guys who you have to at least account for. Deebo is probably one of the guys that's not getting as much attention. Yes, we're all aware of his name, but when the Lions have to pick a wide receiver to cover, it's going to be Ayuk. And then you still have George Kittle you need to be concerned with. So they have pieces all over the field that the Lions need to be concerned with. And if you are a defensive coordinator, you're probably going to let Debo get whatever he wants, because he should be the kind of the underneath guy, the gadget guy, the, you know, short pass, very low ADOT kind of guy. So for those reasons, I think Debo could have a great week 1, and I would feel very confident playing him week 1 against the Lions. And he right now, I believe, is like a 7th round pick. So if he were your wide receiver 3 or your flex, or, you know, your wide receiver 4, if you happen to go that route, I feel very confident he's going to give you at least 10 points. And if you're playing in PPR, he's probably going to give you closer to like 14, 15 points. So something to think about, guys. A little, like I said, just a little tip, a little nugget there. And if you want to know why that is, you have to kind of put yourself in the mind of a defensive coordinator. And let's say you know that, you know, the Chiefs have Tyreek Hill and they're coming to town week 1. Well, you know who their main weapon is, or one of them. You know who their main receiver is, I should say. You know who you need to stop and who they would love to go to. So what are you going to do? You have months, literal months, and then before you even get the players into the office to start working on it, to kind of draft up a plan on how to stop Tyreek Hill. Then you have preseason. You get to start, kind of gauging your guys on who can match up with him and who can do what, so you can shift the right guys to cover him. So you're going to take a lot of time to stopping the key players, the star players on the team, which means that the backups have to step up if a team's going to win. And the backups are going to have some pretty good looks, probably some of the best looks they're going to have the entire year, because the defense has been gauging all offseason to stop the number one guy, whether that's the number one tight end, the number one receiver, the number one running back, whatever it is. The number two guys are going to have their little moment to shine. So, again, just a little tip there. And lastly, and I apologize, I know these videos always go a little bit long. I'll leave you with this, though. Rookie wide receivers tend to break out or have better games, better showings in the second half of the season. So if you are drafting, or better yet, if you're not drafting, rookie wide receivers like a Devontae Smith, like a Jamar Chase, like a Jalen Waddle, any of these guys that are, top end rookies, somebody that will go very high and just a rookie only draft, and they're not performing for you right away, if you drafted them, just hold on to them, give them some time, let them kind of simmer, and then by middle of the season, they should start showing up for you. Conversely, though, if you do not draft those guys, let's say you make it out of your draft and you have no rookie wide receivers, you might want to look to pick up some of those guys in like a week 7 or 8 before they start kind of producing. A guy like Jamar Chase, who is just having a lot of issues with drops right now, he's a great player. I watched him a lot at LSU. Great receiver, great scouting report. But he's just not really transitioning well right now. And a lot of that, he hasn't played football in over a year. And now that he is playing, he's having to play at the NFL level, not the college level. Like I said, it's going to take him some time. So, week 3, 4, 5, he's not producing, he's not catching, he's not really, having the performances we thought he would. And he was a 6th round pick, a 7th round pick, something like that. If he gets dropped, which I wouldn't be surprised in a few of your leagues if he gets dropped in like a week 5, 6 where he just hasn't done anything, go scoop him up. Let him kind of, like I said, let him just sit on your bench. Let him simmer there for a second or two. By week 8, week 9, see what he's doing. See if his performances are looking any better. And I don't mean just look at the stat sheet. I mean, like, if you can, watch the game. See how he's looking. Maybe he still has drops, or maybe he doesn't have great stats put up yet. But is he the reason? Is he not getting separation? Is he dropping it, or is it just like fluke plays? Are they not looking at him enough? Is Burrow making bad throws? Things like that, where you need to actually watch the game. And so keep your eye on these rookie wide receivers come week 7 or so, week 7 to week 8. Look at them out there, see who's available on your waiver wires, and pick some of them up. Pick at least one of them up that you want to give a shot on. I guarantee you by week 8, there's going to be somebody on your team that's just not performing that you'll feel okay with dropping. Use that spot to pick up one of those receivers and give them a week or 2. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you for bearing with me here for 20 minutes. Have a great day. Good luck out there. If you're doing a draft this year, or this weekend, I should say, good luck again, and see you soon.